Coming up, Halloween Horror Nights for 2023. Welcome to the SeeWDW Near and Far podcast, where we explore perspectives of the Walt Disney World Resort from 10 to 1,000 miles away. I am Mike the Far in this equation.
And I'm John the 10.
All right. So today we are going to not talk about Walt Disney World. We're going to talk about Halloween Horror Nights for this year. And we're going to go down through the houses, talk about each house, and also the scare zones, and about Nightmare Fuel, the show in the back of the park.
And I did want to mention, too, this is a good one for the perspectives of, since you had to fly 1,000 miles to see Horror Nights. You got there one night, and you did all of it in one night. I've been probably 3 or 4 times, maybe 4 or 5 times now and I don't stay long. So you and I experience them in very different ways. So.
Yes, that's very true. And to be perfectly honest and perfectly fair, the way that we experience each one of these houses really probably helps to dictate how we feel about the houses too, right, John? I mean, I'm by the end of the night, let's say, and let's just say, like at the end of the night, the last house we did was the Exorcist house, right? And so I probably see that a little bit differently based on that fact than, say, how you might see it, or certain things I might have missed because maybe I was just dog tired, at the end of the night. So, I mean, I will say this was a little bit different for this year for me, because this was the first year that I did this event that my wife was not along, and I took my daughter instead, and she was not used to the sheer toll on your physical body that this event can take on you. So, it was different. It was definitely a different way to experience it. And whereas my wife and I are usually done with this event, we go right from start and go right to about 11 o'clock. And we've done all the houses at that point, all the scare zones, probably got something to eat, and maybe did a few other things. This particular time, because of, being with someone that wasn't used to the grind on this thing, it went way different. We were there till after 1 a.m, and this event ends at 2. So it was a different way to experience it, John, a different experience for me. And, that probably helps to paint how I see some of this event this year.
And in contrast, most of my visits to Horror Nights, it's still light out when I get home.
Yeah. I mean, right. And so we see it from different lenses, right? And that's what we've always tried to do with this podcast. Let me just say, you said fly 1,000 miles, and I did. But the previous weekend, so that was 2 weekends in a row, I was down in your neck of the woods. The first weekend, obviously, with my wife, staying Coronado. This time, staying with my daughter, taking her for the first time to the area in like 2 years, and doing stuff with her. So, we stayed at Cabana Bay this weekend. So 2 weekends in a row, I was down, flew back. And, so that was a little different. I wasn't used to that either. But let me just first start before we really get into it and say that over at Cabana Bay, if you are a resort guest, of Universal for this event. Cabana Bay has a really cool little event going on inside, right next to the bowling alley, like next to the bowling, or next to the arcade, pardon me, and on the second floor of the main building. And it is a Chucky event, and it's really about the TV show, the Chucky TV show, but it's in conjunction with the Halloween Horror Nights event. It's just like a bunch of photo ops with sets, and it's kind of cool. And they do some tricks and stuff with the photography and with some of the sets. And throughout the entire event, they tell you as soon as you walk in, they're like, we encourage you to photo and video all you want. And you go in and you can photo, video, all the sets, all the things going on, and get some selfies with Chucky and what's the girl doll? I think Tiffany is her name. Maybe, I don't remember. My daughter told me about it, but in any case, it's a really neat little add-on, a little neat event for resort guests at Universal. And my understanding is there are other small photo ops and various unique drinks at each one of the Universal resorts this year to celebrate the event as well. So something for everyone to think about if you're coming down and you don't know where to stay. You may pay a little bit more to stay at Universal than, say, off site, or maybe you want to stay at Disney or whatever. That's fine. But Universal gives you this little perk and incentive to stay at their resorts. So wanted to add that before we started in, John. I forgot to mention it on our midweek Parks and Socials podcast. So, all right. Starting out, I think maybe we'll talk about Nightmare Fuel in the back of the park, the show. In the back of the park. And one of the main reasons I'd like to talk about that is because I didn't get to see it until this year. This was the first year that I got into that show. And if you want to see that show, from what I understand, the 9:30 show is the busiest each night. That is the show I went to. And in addition, you better make sure that you get back there like a half an hour before the show starts, because Florida tourists and Florida locals that go to these events, they're willing to line up for the simplest firework show for hours sometimes just to catch it. And this is no different. This is the same type of thing. And there were people probably waiting to get into that thing for over an hour. And there's no way. I'm not going to waste my park time doing that. So half an hour, I'd say. Again, I went to the busiest show and I got there a half an hour early, and I had no problem getting in. So just get there a half hour early. Secondly, seating. I don't really think there's any bad seat for that show, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. What are you going to say?
I was going to say, when I saw it, they didn't really give you an option as to where to sit. Maybe they do at first, but as you go in, they tell you exactly where you're sitting.
Yes.
So.
Yep. You're exactly right. That's what they do. Like you kind of have the pick of the litter the earlier you go in. So a lot of people kind of crowd towards that center stage. It goes out into the audience a little bit. They want to feel more connected to the show. I think for me, I don't really care. I just want to get in that show. I had gone or tried to get into that show a couple times over the last 2 years, and it's always either crowded or we're just too tired to make it back there to the show, and they shut off the line and you can't get in. So I just don't like wasting my time waiting for a show like that. So but let me tell you, it was worth it this time, and I would recommend it to anybody who hasn't seen it yet. My understanding is it hasn't really changed much over the last 2 years or so. But what a great show, man. Those people are just really talented dancers, coordinated dancing, the There's a lot of like fire going on. There's explosions. There's, like kind of like sparks that fly off of like whips and chains and all this stuff. Um, you know, it, they're very scantily clad. I would not recommend you taking your young kids. I've heard about it every year. People take their young little kids to this show, and I saw it in that show as well. And hey, to each their own. You raise your kids how you want to. I'm just warning you, it is a very sexy show. It is, these performers are half naked, and there's a lot of gyrating and stuff like that going on. I just would not take, I would not take my 14-year-old son to this show. Now my older child, okay, like she can handle it, but, I definitely wouldn't take anyone under a teenage years to the show. The music is great. It's loud. It's heavier music. But man, those people are talented. They do this night after night. There's some acrobatics going on, and it's almost like a HHN themed Cirque du Soleil, more or less.
Yeah, that's a good description of it.
Yeah, that's kind
With
of
lots of extra fire.
yes. Yeah, that's right. So, all right. Well, that's basically what I wanted to mention about that. The show goes about a half hour, 45 minutes or so. So be prepared to put that much time into sitting down and watching the show. And to be honest with you, John, I didn't mind that, even though it took up a big block of time that I typically would have used for the houses or the scare zones. It was well worth it to me, and I just didn't want the show to end. I just thought it was so good. They were great. So,
yeah, and I didn't see it yet this year, and I'm not 100% sure if I will or I won't. Since I like to leave so early, it's a little difficult for me, but I usually do make a point to see it at least once every year, since I have, the pass to go very often.
Yeah, it's an excellent show. Highly recommend it. All right, John, let's get into the scare zones. What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about Vamp 69 first?
Yeah, might as well. It's up on the screen, and honestly, it is the most memorable of all the scare zones. And
yep,
without even trying, I just walk through, and you can see it right on the thing. They interact with you.
Yep.
They come up with you. They try to scare you. They interact with each other. Very good group of characters. Like there, you can see. I see that guy again later, who gets right up in my face and has a head in his hand, and like every time I walk through this scare zone, between the music and the great interaction by the characters in there, I come out with a smile on my face when I go through it every time. So definitely the best of the scare zones.
I 100% agree. And let's explain the scare zone a little bit. This is a 60s, specifically 1969 music fest. You have tour buses that are painted in hippie colors and things like that. You're walking around and, there's all these characters, music from that era. There's, vehicles in the street from that era. People are dressed, the scare actors are dressed in that era. There are some normal, I'd say human, actors, and there are some vampire actors. There are go-go dancers. There are, all these things. And again, there's even a stage set up where someone's dancing around in front of it or up on it, on the stage. This particular scare zone, I'm not really sure what you call that area there, John. What is that?
I think it's the New York area.
The New York area, okay.
And yeah, there are zombies and there are victims. That's the two types of characters you'll see in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the others are the guests, obviously. But
Yeah, so they are very interactive. They'll dance. They dance with each other. They'll dance with you. There are scenes. There are like many scenes that go on during this scare zone. So a lot of people didn't like the candy scare zone last year. Remember that? I loved that. That was my favorite. And I loved it for the same reasons that I loved this, because the actors were so interactive and there was a story that was cohesive and it really was easy to tell. And that's what I really liked about that one last year. And it's what I liked about this one this year as well. These actors are probably the highest quality actors, of all the scare zones, in my opinion. And, clearly, like the people that I mean, they have to be, because they're more or less what you would call face characters at Disney, right? So they are all front facing to the customer. They're talking to you. They're saying something. Like I had one creep up on me as I was doing some filming and turn around as I was looking at another actor. And honestly, John, the way he snuck up to me, if he would have been a vampire or zombie or whatever, I would have been got for sure. Guy, there was another one that did the same thing. And the only reason I knew he was there is because he was breathing his hot breath on my shoulder or on my neck. I'm telling you, they do a great job, like really putting some fear in you and like putting this scare into your head a little bit. So for me, this particular scare zone, the area it's located in, is typically the last, all my years of going to this now, this is the third year. This is where my favorite scare zone typically is always located. And this thing is the same. I love it. It's just an excellent, excellent scare zone.
yeah, and I have to say too, the people like it, a lot of it too, because of the music. The people who work there, the guests, everybody, like there are songs that if you're in this scare zone, you can hear the whole crowd is just singing along to the song together, including the vampires. So there's just something about that. It's a weird thing. You're in the middle of fog and blood and vampires, and everybody's singing together and enjoying it. So they did the music festival thing a little too well. People are treating it like, and there are people who treat it like it is a music festival. They are there for hours and just hang out in that scare zone and sing and dance and interact with the characters. And so that's definitely the highlight.
I understand why they do, and let me say, I was present when the main scene was going on, and the main scene is they get into a big circle, and I think they use this as an opportunity to switch off scare actors too. They get in a big circle, and then they have kind of like the normal people in the middle, and they just crowd up on them, and then they'll come out of that circle, with blood on their faces, and people will run out. Human so-called people will run out and scream and run away. And sometimes they'll have like limbs that come out of that circle, like body parts that they carry with them. It's pretty interesting and pretty neat how that works. And I say that I think it's where they exchange it, but they have actual employees, team members near that particular scene holding up, one of those lighted wands or whatever that kind of give them a signal. So I'm assuming that's what it is. But in any case, the scene that they acted out was really great there. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, so. And Sweet Caroline is the one that everybody does that bum, bum, bum.
Yeah.
They all go together, and it's like, like I said, that's a good one. But
I've been in like a football stadium where that song is going off and everyone sings it. You know what I mean? I've been in a bar where the same thing has happened, and I could see how that would work great in that situation. So.
all right, and the scare zone right next to it. Sorry.
No, that's all good.
Is the freight yard. You can see that here.
Yeah, and this is located in the San Francisco section, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So here is I don't have a really great take on this one, John, because when we went, you were actually with us at that point. When we went through there, it was daylight and there wasn't a lot of actors out there moving around or even out there. All I saw was this tall one that you're showing on the screen right now. And I've seen video of this particular scare zone and it actually looks pretty cool, but it's just
it's very small though, and there's not a lot to it. They have a vampire here locked up in a cage, and there's a few other monsters around. It does get a lot scarier at night, but again, the problem is you just got done walking through 69, and then you're like, oh yeah, this is something.
It's like you walk through the best scare zone probably in years, and then you go through that one. And to be honest with you, it's my least favorite one because of that, but I didn't really have a fair shake at it. You know what I mean?
Here's a little bit of some stuff that is pretty cool that's there at night. This particular character only seems to be there at night, but that thing is pretty cool too. It kind of just dances around, and they've got some cool stuff there. Like I said, I don't think you'll find any scare zone that's bad. It's just some are better than others, and smaller too. Vamp 69 is the largest scare zone with the most actors in it too, so it's kind of hard to compete against that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But and that one is probably the smallest one. So I mean, the largest one, the smallest one right there. You also have in between there, or at the beginning of that whole thing, you have the tribute store, which is an experience itself, right? So, I mean, you have all those things going on, and you even have a house, I think, in between, right? So, all right, John. Well, for me, like I said, I really don't have much to add to that one because I really didn't see much of it. What is the next one in line? It would be the jungle one, right?
Yeah, there's the jungle one is near the Central Park area, and it's not my favorite one. Like, there's something in there. My issue with these are, like, I don't understand like the story and what all this stuff is. It's like that is a very cool looking thing, but I don't really understand what it's supposed to be. There is a story behind it.
Yeah.
And like they have Dr. Oddfellow as a human as you enter the scare zone. And I saw it here a minute ago. Oh, there he is. Here you can see him up there. And he has like a soul and he's laughing, it's so there is a story to it.
Yes, the Dr. Oddfellow is up there. He tells a story then, and he introduces it to you, what's going on. But I came in right at the tail end of it, so I didn't get it. So I don't get that story either, John. But I've been told, or not told, but I've read where this is considered, one of the deepest as far as story goes, one of the deepest ones because it does tell the origin of Dr. Oddfellow. So I don't know. I couldn't really necessarily get what was going on there, but still it kind of I didn't really get the characters. And what's true year after year for me with that particular scare zone is and there it is. What's it called? Jungle of
Jungle of
Doom.
Doom. Yep.
What I don't get is a lot of times I miss the characters in this particular scare zone because I think they have a ways to walk from their backstage area to there. So if you're in between shifts, which I typically always am for whatever reason when I get to the scare zone, I miss some of the scare actors. The other thing is they don't just jump out at you here from the props. They actually chase people in this particular scare zone sometimes. So if you're in the middle of a chase, you've missed the person jumping out. So I like this scene. I like the things, the props, all that kind of stuff. I like the characters and stuff, but I'm with you. I didn't really get the scare zone itself. I didn't understand it necessarily. And this one was my favorite character. I really like this character. It's kind of like hidden in the bushes, that character. And when I walked by, it was just standing there. It didn't even move, but I knew, like, I could tell I could make it out, but most people couldn't. So that thing would have got somebody along the way. It just didn't get me. But it was like a jungle creature that was kind of blended in with the jungle. I don't know what the story is with Dr. Oddfellow there. I mean, I think that's his origins, how he was created or whatever. But in any case, yeah, that I agree with you. I would echo what you say. I like that area, though. I like how narrow it is there, and they can kind of pinch you in there and come at you. And I think it would have been, really cool in the right situation.
All right. Next, we'll look at Dark Zodiac.
Yeah, that's it.
And as you can tell, all of these have something to do with
Dr. Oddfellow, yeah.
This one says Dr. Oddfellow has entered a dark dimension to harness the power of the Zodiac and live forever. He twists the signs into malevolent beings who foretell your doom. As his star rises, yours falls. I'm not real great at reading.
No, you're good.
It's been a while since I've been at school. But anyway, Dark Zodiac. This is probably my second favorite one. I don't, this stuff is really weird, but there is some cool things in here. Like, there's some cool monsters and some very interesting interactions and stuff. But again, what I noticed was I just didn't have the interactions that I did in the other ones. And, it could just be a coincidence, but it just feels, like it's not as much. Oh, and this is also where the chainsaws are this year. I don't know what chainsaws have to do with the Zodiac from another dimension, but they're in there and they're all dressed in black. So.
Yep.
So that's probably my second favorite one, just because it's pretty cool. Although maybe it's third, because right at the beginning of the park, they had to push the scare zone up. It used to be by Minions, but because of the new Minions ride, they thought it would be weird to have it right in that area, so they pushed it towards the front a little more, and that's Dr. Oddfellow's collection of horror.
Yeah.
So, and that's just, people roaming around. That's where you'll see the
Dr. Oddfellow and
iteration of Dr. Oddfellow.
And he's almost acting like a pimp. I mean, to be honest with you, like, he'll go up to ladies and stuff and like try and charm them and all this stuff. So, I've noticed that. I noticed that. I have video of that.
Yeah, I haven't seen him a lot of times, but you can definitely see him wandering around up there. And, there's just some weird stuff. Like, I don't know what these things are. Just odd things roaming around in the front. And I didn't spend a lot of time up there since it's, a smaller spot up front.
Yeah, I thought the Pumpkin Lord one up there last year was a little bit better than this one. I wasn't that impressed by it, but it was okay. You know, it was cool. I agree about the Dark Zodiac. What you said. That's usually one of my favorite ones. I did have a lot of interactions there with the characters, and it's always I always love getting video out of that. I get great video from that particular area every year because I guess because of the way it's set up. But I like that. What's next, John? What do you want to talk about?
We could talk about the tribute store a little bit.
Oh, good. Let's talk about that. I love it this year. This is my favorite so far of any tribute store I've been through, John. I am just so impressed by this because I'm a comic book nerd and it tackles like noir, like a detective noir type environment, and the effects and everything. It's black and white in a lot of the areas. It's just classic comic book. Lots of scenes with speaking bubbles and thought bubbles, and the one area has special effects that simulate rain that is on the floor. And I just, John, I did buy a shirt there, but I bought a normal like HHN shirt. But let me tell you, as awesome as that place was, I wish there was something just themed to that theme in there that I could have really sunk my teeth into. That place was great.
Yeah, I didn't really see any merchandise that matched the theming of it, but
Yeah, I didn't either. It was more house related and more event related, but man, was this themed like the a couple years ago when they had the detective house that was like a almost like a Cthulhu type house, you know what I mean? Do you remember that house that kind of had a detective story in it? It's
I do, but I don't remember it being comic book themed though. But I'm sure they reused some of the same props because
Yeah, it sort of
whatever.
reminded me because that creature right there that you have in the screen with all the tentacles and stuff was sort of like something out of that house. Yeah, I just love this. I I can't even tell you how impressed I was with this tribute store this year.
Yeah, and the good thing about tribute stores is you don't have to be going to horror nights to see them. They're
Yeah,
just open. So if you're there during the day, there you can see the rain effect a little bit.
yeah,
If you're there during the day, you can just go in there and go little taste for horror nights.
yeah. I mean, then they did a great job with covering the merchandise for each house in here. Man, I just what a great job. These guys, these folks, these men and women, they do an excellent job with this with these tribute stores, and this one was just amazing.
Yeah, I really like that octopus
I
thing.
do too. That's
Yeah.
great. That thing's great.
But yeah, it's a really good setup, and it's nice because since you're allowed to film in there,
Yeah.
I got a lot more. I didn't get everything, but I got a lot more. Got some Chucky merchandise.
Yeah. It's a very strong tribute store. It has everything in it for sure. They did a good job with
Yeah,
sourcing the merchandise this year because it's everywhere, you know.
and this was a popular photo spot. You could sit at this diner and get a picture or video. So that took me a while to even get that because there were people there, getting photos for social media and stuff. So,
Very cool.
but yeah, definitely a good tribute store. And I honestly didn't spend a lot of time there yet because I you really wanted to get to all the houses and stuff. So
Hmm.
here's one of the Zodiac monsters. All right, so that's about it for the extra stuff. And obviously, there are countless food and drink offerings out there.
Yeah.
Personally, I didn't try any of them. They don't.
I tried a couple. Yeah, I tried a couple. I tried the potato twist thing that's over by the Last of Us rush kind of area. It was okay. It wasn't. It's like they do it every year, I think, in some form or another, where they take potato and just like cut it and swirl it and put it on a stick and fry it and season it.
Yeah.
It was okay. I wouldn't get it again. It wasn't that impressive. And I tried and towards the front of the park, there was a stand with a dessert, and it was, they called it bloody something or another. I don't remember what it was, but it was just like almost like a little cake with, like a red velvet cake with some chocolate on it. It was all right. It was all right. It wasn't anything that I'm like, wow, what a culinary delight. And I don't think you're going to get anything like that. There are some weird different things like hot dogs with bubblegum sauce on it and stuff or something. And by the way, John, my daughter told you she was going to try that. She never did because she just wasn't feeling it. So
Yeah, she probably would have felt sick by then.
Yeah, I think
all the stuff. So
I think so. So, all right. What house do you want to tackle first?
well, let's just go in reverse order here.
All right.
What do you remember about Blood Moon Dark Offerings?
Okay, so this house was what I would maybe call the witch house of the year or the witchcraft house of the year. It takes you back in time. You walk back into what almost resembles like a pilgrim village or an old, maybe something from the 1700s or 1800s or something. It kind of reminds you of something out of the Witch movie from a number of years ago. There's a lot of chanting that goes on in this house. There's a lot of different things that would tell you that there's some dark magic going on here. People in hoods, and there's a lot of like, this person must die and all this kind of stuff going on in there. To me, John, it wasn't terribly scary. There wasn't a lot of jump scares. There were some suspenseful moments. Beautiful, beautiful set. Just there, the one scene they say something about something must happen when the bell tower tolls or something to that effect. And when you walk into the next room after that, there's this massive bell tower right in the middle of this set. And there's an actual actor up there, ringing this big church bell up there at the top of the tower. And that's when things get kind of interesting because you're in for some suspenseful moments after that. I won't spoil it specifically for anybody, but there are a few moments where that you typically see in Halloween Horror Night houses, some of them, where a character might be kind of standing still and you don't know quite if it's a character or not. And, then all of a sudden they might move and scare you a little bit, but there's some things like that, going on after that. But overall, if I'm very honest, it's probably out of all the houses, my least favorite house, John. But I do think it's one of the most beautiful sets. So I like that about it. I like the effects in this house quite a bit. But as far as like, there weren't a ton of scares, and there were even some spots for me where I think maybe an actor didn't show up for work or something because nothing happened for anybody in a section. So that might have affected some things. But in any case, what do you remember, John? What do you think?
Yeah, when I went through it, I agree. It's definitely the witch feel house this time, and I have to say that I liked it though. I thought it was. I thought it had a very unique feel to it. Like I said, it had that witch feel. I really do like the originals, and I For me, it's not my favorite house, but it's towards the top 5, I think. So,
Hmm.
but again, I might have seen it completely different than you. And as a local, I will probably be going seeing this one more because it doesn't have the longest wait time.
Yes.
So for me, that makes a big difference because when we get to my least favorite house, it has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I get it.
So I was going to say the next one I wanted to talk about is the Darkest Deal, and this one was the favorite one so far for my wife and myself, and it's just a very well done house. And what we both liked about it a lot is, we're old people at this point, and there's always some story going on that you should like listen to a podcast first. It's going to explain all why this and that and the backstory, and we don't do any of that. We just go in, and with this one, we just walked in, and the story was very apparent. It
Hmm.
was uh, it was a musician selling his soul to be good at playing music, and had a very southern but and dark overtone to it. And like I said, the devil appears all over the place, and they're just even in places you might not notice. Like if you're looking up at the stage at the guy singing, you might not notice that sitting as a spectator is a version of the devil there, just kind of smiling. And little stuff like that for me goes a long way. And like I said, after our first time through it, I knew exactly what was going on. Like it's extremely clear, which is hard to do in these houses. A lot of times they're so scary, you can't tell a very easy to comprehend story. So I really liked it. One of my favorites. It's kind of like a blues kind of music, and not that I would listen to blues, just under normal circumstances, but something really cool and eerie about the music that's coming out of it too. So I really really enjoy that one.
Yep, I would totally agree with you. I think that it's so they call their version, I guess, what they call the devil like character. He is actually known as the collector or collector of souls. And like you said, he's collecting the souls and making a deal, with the actual main character of the house, which is the musician. And you do see this collector in each one of these scenes, almost in every room of the house, watching and telling part of the story. And at the end of some of the rooms, and particularly at the end of the house, that's when you really see the devil. I mean, like he's coming out and he's, you are his, and all this stuff. I really like this house as well, John. And part of what really sticks out to me is the contract. You actually see the contract, and the collector is standing with the contract himself, and you see like green lettering that kind of illuminates the contract as it comes down through. I can't even tell you how impressed I was when I saw that. I just thought, man, that is so awesome. So, the devil himself that's coming out and like trying to grab you at times and stuff is pretty ominous. I mean, he's frightening. He's doing a lot of the jump scares and stuff. And there's other creatures that are also jumping out and doing the same thing. So I enjoyed the house a lot. It was different, right? And way different than anything we've seen yet. So
Yeah, yeah, and I'd have to the next one is Yeti Campground Kills. And over the last few years, Universal has been doing a lot of different Yeti stuff, and they call Bigfoot Yeti, and
Mhm.
Like they always seem to throw the term Yeti around a bit, but this is not the first Yeti house I've been in, and this is also where the Universal Bear makes an appearance,
Yeah.
which I love. That they like to place him around in different places. So, I would have to say I definitely enjoyed the campground. I don't even know if that is the campground we're looking at, but
I'm pretty sure it's either that or it's the Dark Moon house. I'm not sure which. I think this might be the
uh,
dark. This is
I
the
think
Dark
you're
Moon
right.
house, I think, because the Yeti camp kills. The thing that I will mention about it is, man, that thing it's relentless. They are jumping out at you constantly. They are everywhere, and I like this house too, John. It is really fun. I just think it's one of the more one of the funnest houses of this year. I don't want to say that it's my favorite house because it's not, but it is the funnest house, the most fun I had in a house, just because it was so so like they were constantly like leaping out at you in every scene, man. It wasn't just like you weren't just watching a Yeti do something. You were watching a Yeti jump out at you. And by the end of this thing, I wasn't even sure, like, is the Universal Bear the one doing the kills or are the Yetis tearing apart these people? I wasn't sure, what was going on there. So the story was a little muddy in my mind, but, from what I understand, it was indeed the Yetis that you should be running from, not the bear. That scene with the Universal Bear jumping out at you, that was really fun. I really love that.
Yeah, and in this particular case, they did have him there a lot. Like he was just like instead of just jumping out at you, he was in the dark, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden he would go at you, but he was just sitting right in front of you, waiting for
Yeah,
waiting for you to see it. So
it was really fun. I like I said, I mean the effects and everything, they had the campground had like old school trailers and things like that from a campground, and you had like there were some really frightening moments too in that particular house. Like there was kind of a sad sort of frightening part where a woman jumped out at you and said, "Where's my son?" Hollering for her son, and she had blood all over her face, and that was sort of sad and frightening. But yeah, I really like that house, and I agree with you, John. Everything about it, even the Yetis, they weren't like I guess a realistic, for lack of a better term, looking, cryptid. They were very exaggerated and very monstrous. But that's what I really liked about it, because it was kind of, I think it was done with a spirit of fun. So loved it, John.
all right. Well, the next one I guess we would talk about is Dueling Dragons. Choose Thy Fate.
Yeah.
This was an odd choice, I guess you might say, for Universal this year, and a lot of people really did like this, but I have to say that I didn't love it. It was the costumes were well done. I definitely appreciated that. I just didn't feel it just wasn't that impressive, and it might have been. I went through it twice, and the second time was better. But again, like at the end, you can choose fire or you can choose
Ice. Yeah.
ice, and
Yeah.
I went through and chose both, but not much happened at the end. Just a little bit, and I'm like, well, anticlimactic because I heard people say, "Oh, definitely choose ice, choose ice." And I
No,
was
no,
like,
it changes. It changes each time. Like it changes randomly which one has a reaction. Did you not see Merlin in either one, or did you just see?
I think I did.
Okay, so I chose ice, and most people were choosing. No, I chose fire. I'm sorry, and most people chose ice. And everyone with us didn't understand the fact that you could choose which one you went through. And I knew you could, like I had heard that you could, but I just didn't know anything about the house. I don't know anything about this ride, John. I never rode it. I understand that it was backed by Hagrid's, right? Is where this ride was. And, I chose, like I said, when I chose fire, like my daughter wanted to go ice. I said, "Oh, I'm going fire. If you want to go ice, go for it." No, she followed me, and I saw Merlin at the end. Now, my understanding is, and he said that I chose wisely and all this stuff, but my understanding is that if you chose the other one, you saw Merlin's detached arm or leg or something. So I don't, and the wizard from that version, like won, and you lost, so to speak. So
I must have missed a lot of it then because again, I went through it twice. The first time I noticed a lot of empty spots, so I think I had
you must
a
have had,
bad
yeah,
set for one of them, and the
yeah,
second one was better, but still not great. And you know, the person who's dressed in the ice costume, whatever it is, very well done, that costume.
yeah,
But it just I really didn't see him much though. And again, there you can see a statue of the
yeah.
ice person there, and you can see one of these rooms. But I think this may be one of the times I went in and really nothing was going on much. Oh, all right, yes, somebody came
Yeah,
in.
yeah. What happens there is they distract you with that statue as you're walking in, and then the wizard jumps out. So let me tell you about this. And from my perspective, this was one of my favorite houses, believe it or not. And the reason for it was the beautiful set. It was just gorgeous, and there were effects everywhere in this house. The one room which is coming up here in your video, the wizards have, I think it's the next room, but I'm not sure, but the wizards have turned into dragons at that point, and there are these beautiful dragons up above, like as part of the set, and that the wizards had turned into. There's a lot of jump scares on this one where they come out if you get the right environment, I think. And the fact that you got to choose at the end, I really, really like that a lot. The one thing I will say is there's some sections that are confusing here. You almost walk into scare holes at times because it's kind of hard to see. Here's the choose thy fate part, and you went into ice. Let's see what happens here. Not really anything. Interesting. So you just got your particular experience there, John, just didn't show much of anything. You're muted right now, by the way. I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. That's the part where something should have happened, but nothing happened. I don't know.
Yeah, you got a bad experience there just because somebody didn't show up for work or something. But I really liked that a lot, and I didn't know anything about the Dueling Dragons IP, so I thought that was an awesome house. The set was beautiful. I will say, I mean, they did a great job with that, so I liked it a lot. But I can get where your experience would have painted it differently if you didn't get, the proper amount of scare actors. That house would have totally bombed.
All right. And the next one is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, I did like this one. I thought it was pretty good. And this is the one I actually went through this one with you.
Yeah. The main complaint I would have is, of course, the massive amount of walking to get to this one. I like this one. This was the second one that we did for the night, my daughter and I, and the last one that you did with us. And so I guess I like the idea of that particular house. I like the premise and everything around it as Dr. Oddfellow's continuing his origin story. But it was sort of confusing for me as far as a story thing went. As far as a pure scare house and everything, it was really good. There were a lot of clowns and things like that in there, a lot of circus things going on. And I love that. I absolutely do. I just wish the story was a little more cohesive in this one. And the other thing was, I wanted to see Jack the Clown in this one. And I hear that he's part of the story, but I did not see him in this house. So I don't know what was going on there. I really think this was a perfect opportunity for them to introduce a connection to Dr. Oddfellow with the other icons from Universal, the other horror icons. And by horror icons, I don't mean like Crypt Keeper and all that stuff. I mean the original horror icons like Jack the Clown. And, what's the name of that kind of big clown in the green outfit that kind of, dances around and stuff every, like the last couple years?
No, I don't even know.
You don't remember, like he's like on my one TikTok that I did, like on the cover of it. So he has a name. So anyways, there a lot of the characters from Universal's original icons are circus characters, right? And I thought this was a missed opportunity for them to introduce a lot of them into Dr. Oddfellow's origin story. But with that said, it was a really good circus house that had some good jump scare moments where clowns and different circus creatures and stuff like that jumped out at you. So I did like this house.
Yeah, I was going to say what I like about this house. I couldn't really follow what was going on per se. It just seemed like a scary house, but you can see going through this thing that there's a lot of old circus, carnival props and stuff going on in here. And very interesting setup. And again, this is one we both did. Like there you can see the old like scary face on the wall. And it was definitely a scary house. Lots of jump scares. If you're scared of clowns, this is going to be a rough one for you.
Yep.
There's some clown-ish stuff that pops out, and like I said, even just the weird masks on the wall and stuff. It's a pretty interesting house. And again, it's all performance based. It's circus, carnival, performance. But like I said, I definitely liked it. I thought it was for me. We didn't rank them this year, but it was close. It was in my top 5 probably. I'd have to say.
Yeah, I would put it up there. It was a really well done house. I didn't like the length of walking the queue to get to it, but it was kind of weird this year.
This particular house, it's where House of a Thousand Corpses was a few years ago. It used to be a very small walkway, meaning you go down, the house is right next to the queue, and then you come back. Now you go down, and because of the construction, you walk a half a mile to the right. It feels like around the whole park to get to it. So,
yeah, you're literally walking behind Men in Black to get to this thing. You're starting up by the stage show, up by Nightmare Fuel, and you're walking clear down behind Men in Black. It's a long queue.
All right, and next we'll go to Universal Monsters Unmasked.
Yeah.
Universal Monsters, I still feel like a few years ago when they first did it was my favorite one because they had Creature from the Black Lagoon in. He would appear and you'd hear that noise and it would be really good. This one is not bad. I mean, my daughter went through it several times and really liked it. I've only been through it once so far.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't say the only memorable part was at one point one of them kind of went at you. It had the bungee scare to kind of go at you.
Oh yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't really have a lot of.
Yeah. That was the Hunchback. That was the Hunchback that does that, by the way.
And again, you know, this would be in my lower 5 right now.
Mm-hmm. This is actually my favorite house, John. And for me, the reason why it's my favorite house is because it has the most things that are burned into my mind, really, for that house. So from the time you enter the house, the set right away begins. You see you are walking the streets of Paris, and you look up, and there's a Parisian police officer walking across an old stone bridge. And when you walk into this house, you're getting a mist in your face. So it is a rainy night in the streets of Paris. You are walking into an ominous black hole underneath the bridge that the officer is on. Now, previous years, you might remember this was the Monsters house last year, and before that, the 2 years before that, it was the Beetlejuice house, right? In this particular stage. So you might be familiar with the element of one of the actors walking up elevated from this particular set. I liked it because of how it presented itself. One of the characters, and I'm not sure which one it was, I think it's the Invisible Man, is running from the law, and he runs to Paris. He just happens to be in Paris, and Paris is known for Phantom of the Opera. He's a Parisian a villain, monster, and the Hunchback is also a Parisian villain and monster. And just about the same time, visiting at the same time, is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who is in Paris for some reason. So each one of these characters kind of gets their own mini scene in a room. And in particular, the Phantom of the Opera is introduced for the first time, from what I understand. So, and the Hunchback as well, I believe. So they all have kind of extended scenes. Like you said, John, the Hunchback comes down on like a bungee scare from above you. And, there's another, couple scenes where you're walking in a theater in an old school Parisian theater, and you see some of the people that came to see the show for the night are like, they've had some misfortune, let's just say. One of the scenes sees the Phantom of the Opera actually plucking someone's eyeballs out. I mean, it's really gruesome and terrible, but all along the way, these characters are jumping out at you. Sometimes their victims are jumping out at you. And throughout the entire thing, you have an old school kind of paperboy yelling extra, extra, you know, because each time they're doing it, a murder has occurred. So I just really liked how the tendrils of storyline here and how they connected each room and each story bit in this house. If you go into it with that in mind, John, you may find yourself enjoying this house a little bit more. Maybe not, but I really liked this, and the sets were absolutely gorgeous. I really liked this a lot.
All right. The next one is Chucky.
Yeah.
Ultimate Kill Count.
This was the first one you and I did together.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't like this one, but I really didn't mind it. I never watched the Chucky show on whatever channel he's on, Sci-Fi or whatever. Like, it's based on the show, but I have to say, when we were standing in line, I really did appreciate, the fact that they were kind of playing on TV, because this is a TV based show.
Yeah.
And Chucky was basically saying these a-holes at Universal, they don't even, he said they don't even kill any of the people in these houses. And he goes, we're going to take care of that. And I thought it was just funny the way he was talking bad about Universal and, the people there. And so they kind of brought reality into it just a little bit, so and again, this is the house that's by Fast and Furious. So
yeah,
the two part, you got one part and you think you're done, and then you have another.
That's one of the things I loved about this house, John, is that they made it look like you were done, right? So there was the Universal, by the way, I love this house for the humor. Like you said, the humor in this and the lightheartedness was really great. The dark humor, but, you go through the house and it's presented to you like Universal did a horror house. And then you feel like it's over and you're walking out and you're kind of like, well, that was nice. And you walk out and then you're like, and you warned me about it and I didn't realize it because I literally thought it was over. And then it's like all of a sudden now it's actual Chucky, and it's Chucky did something to the Universal actors and all that stuff, right? So with this house, and there's the kill count too. And it actually has a kill counter in the house. Did you see that? Did you pick that up? That's how many people were. That's the ultimate kill count for the day. And Chucky's even talking about it here. So right there is the kill counter. And every time you walk through underneath that, it goes up a number. I love this house, John. It's not my favorite house of the year, but it's humor. It's dark humor and that little twist in the middle of the house. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I like it too. It's one of the ones that stood out to me.
It's a meta house, right? So like when you go through halfway, there are actors dressed up, there are people dressed up and they're like, he killed us all, help us and all that kind of thing.
That guy was pretty funny.
Yeah, I love that.
The guy that got stabbed in the face. Oops.
Yeah, the guy that got stabbed in the face. You're right. It was a good house. I enjoyed it. I understand why people maybe didn't like it. Some people don't want the dark humor houses, but I love that stuff.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. But for me, I would say it's like near the middle.
I would agree with that.
It's not the top house, but it's not the bottom house either. So,
yep.
But, all right. What else do we have? The Last of Us.
Yeah.
Now, this one was very popular, second only to Stranger Things, but I have never played the video game. And, so I'm going through and, they're saying, oh, Joel, blah, and then there's people pretending to be the characters. And again, for me, it means absolutely nothing. I'm like, all right. And again, I like the idea of The Last of Us, like a fungus takes over and stuff. It's like a zombie thing. So I kind of like that. But I think just the popularity of this makes it less. It makes me like it less because I don't want to risk getting stuck in line for a house that's just okay to me. So yeah. I don't know. It wasn't my favorite. It was well done, but again, I just haven't played video games in a long time. So.
I couldn't have said it better myself, John. I was for a long time, and I still occasionally dip into video games, but I'm not a PlayStation guy, so I never understood this IP until I watched the HBO show. This particular house is based on the video game itself. Again, I'm an Xbox guy, not a PlayStation guy. And only because it was more attainable to me and I understood, Xbox a little bit more. The thing is, they said that, well, the game's based in Pittsburgh originally, and this is Pittsburgh. It didn't look like anything Pittsburgh to me in that house, and I've been to Pittsburgh a lot of times, so I didn't recognize Pittsburgh at all. It did not scream Pittsburgh to me. It didn't feel like Pittsburgh to me. It just felt like a video game environment. I like this house. I really do, and it's beautiful, the sets and the characters and how they come after you and things like that. And again, the idea of The Last of Us, and if I had a PlayStation, I totally would have loved this game and would have played it. I would have been into it. So this isn't like a Xbox versus PlayStation thing at all. I've never been that guy. But is it worth waiting? Would I wait for 100 minutes, which this gets up to above 100 minutes now? I would not do that myself. I had Express Pass, so I got in during a 100+ minute queue. I got in. It took me like 20 minutes to get in here. That was worth it to me. So I like the house. I like the mix of human characters with monster characters. I like the fact that the main characters are trying to help you get through the city and stuff, and there's different things like that going on. But I'm like you, I didn't totally get everything with this. I didn't. Some of the elements were not in the TV show, but they were in the video game, so I didn't get it. So I agree with you, John.
I just didn't care about it. I didn't care for the TV show much either. So I just not really my thing. But
yeah, I got it.
So for me, that's one of the IPs that would fall in the bottom half somewhere. The next one is The Exorcist Believer, and this is based off of a movie that has not even been released yet.
Mm-hmm.
But, I've seen the original Exorcist, obviously. And I have to say that this particular house, the first time I went through it, I thought it was good. And then the second time, I really got a lot of the scares and stuff. And I feel like the second time, I really was able to get the feel of it more, meaning I got a lot of like shiver type scares of just downright creepiness. Like they did a great job of
they did
and I even, like, there you can see the missing sign for the missing girls, and there's a campground and they're looking for him. This one too, I was able to follow pretty well, not perfectly, but pretty well as to what was going on. So
I let me explain that quick, John, why you were able to follow it. I actually was watching a little bit of a video after this on this particular house, and my understanding is that they went into this with the concept of making this like a trailer. So this is like walking through a movie trailer, and I think in most movie trailers, they try and give you a watered down version of the story itself, right? Without the details. And in this particular thing, I felt like that's what we got. There's first of all, you start out with the voodoo stuff, right? And the first couple rooms you walk into, there's like this weird kind of voodoo vibe going on and stuff. And then you walk into the woods here and the missing girls in the woods, right? They're missing. And then the next thing you kind of see, like, the girls are found, but there was a body. There's like a police officer that kind of runs out and says, something about a body being found, but it wasn't the girls. The girls, they find them. The story is very clear. They've done a great job of explaining all of this stuff that's going on. So you kind of get a good idea here, a very clear idea. And you see like iconic set pieces here, rooms and the forest setting and things like that. The doll, did you see the doll that turns around on its own by any chance? The stuffed animal?
I think I may have, yeah.
Yeah, there's a scene towards the beginning where that happens. It's pretty creepy. I really feel like this house is, it's definitely one of the scarier. Right here comes a real big jump scare out of the closet too. And you're going through here pretty fast because it looked like the Universal team member was trying to rush you through.
Yeah, unfortunately, they do that. They say, go, 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 go.
Yep, there they are
If I'm
pointing
not right up
and
against the person in front of me,
yeah, it's like they're trying to rush you through.
but yeah. So as far as this one goes, this is one of the ones that is an IP to a movie that's not out yet, and yet is very well done and really comes across as just downright creepy and scary. And I don't think I would like to work in this particular house. I feel like it would be long term mentally unhealthy for you to work in this house for 2 months.
I think
it's a
you're
little
right.
too much. It's a little too has way too much evil feel to it.
It is frightening. There's a lot of the little girls doing stuff, scaring you. Like you get to feel that they're trying to kill their mom and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of crazy,
and there's
crazy scenes.
Some things with horns on it and stuff.
Oh yeah,
I don't know what that is, but
well, it kind of reminds you of the demons that pop out in some of the other scenes from the other Exorcist movies. So it's frightening.
All right, so we move on to the last house, which is the most popular house. And I even asked your daughter, I was like, what are you most excited to see? And of course, Stranger Things.
Yeah.
See Stranger Things. And
yep.
Everybody agrees. And that's why even the Stay and Scream line is 2 hours long. And this is my least favorite house. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons is every time I try to go on it, whether express or not, I've waited 2 hours for this so far, and I have express, so that's just a lot to accept. And this is in a house this year that is shorter. It's shared somehow with another one of the houses, and because of construction, they weren't able to do what they normally do. So this is one of the houses that was shortened. And I have seen 3 Stranger Things houses, and this particular one is my least favorite one out of all 3 that I have seen. And it's not bad, but it's short. There's not a lot to it. I'm just not feeling it. I don't know. It to me, it's not great. And it's my least favorite. It's still good, but it doesn't deserve the fanfare that everyone's.
Yeah. This house lived up to my daughter's hype. This was the one she was looking forward to, and this was her favorite house. She loved the I forget the character's name, the metalhead character that plays Master of Puppets from Metallica or whatever, but she loved the scene with him in it on the stage. And Master of Puppets is played in this particular house, which I was impressed by. The evil character Vecna, they do a decent job, I think, explaining or at least previewing his origin. I was reading, and this particular house is created from the point of view of Vecna himself. So that's why you run into him so many times. So this was how he would have seen season 4 himself. Which explains when you're in the insane asylum or whatever it is, that asylum, that you kind of see 11 from a different perspective, so to speak. I like this house. It's probably higher on my list than it is yours, John. It's probably in the middle somewhere, but if I waited for 2 hours for this house, and I had Express Pass, I'd be very upset.
Well, the Eddie Munson scene, who's the guy
Eddie, yeah,
playing Metallica, it unfortunately the two times I saw it did not look that great, and the scene did not look that great, and it just wasn't. Normally that'd be the part where I'd be like, "Wow, this is one of the wow moments," and they did
hmm,
such a good job. I was thinking they were going to make that further away. Like last year, I think they had a ghost ship slash sailing one, and
yeah,
they had a scene where there was someone playing a violin on the deck of a ship, but it was far away, and the lightning was flashing, and I thought to myself, if they put Eddie Munson up there, and it doesn't even have to look like him because it's far enough away, with
yeah,
instead of just lightning, have the effect going on of the things flying around, that
yeah.
would be the coolest scene ever. And they did that, instead it was a very close up scene and just didn't really do it for me. So
If
I
they
don't
would
know.
have done that, like you'd say, and then like had him playing guitar in the distance, that would have been awesome. I would have loved that because you know how he plays Ride the Lightning with his guitar in that one scene. That was disappointing to me that they didn't have him playing guitar. You could see the guitar there and you knew that that was the scene, but instead they had him kind of fighting off those bats in that scene. I was a little disappointed by that as well. I did like the fact that the music was playing and all
I had
that.
I had said before that I knew people have been playing Master of Puppets for 30 years now, and
Yeah,
actually longer. And when I was a kid, my friends, when they were like 10 years old, had guitars and they would jam Master of Puppets, and they
yeah,
loved it. And what my point is, it would not be hard to find somebody who actually could play a guitar in real life, which really would have went so far too. Imagine if
yeah,
you just had a little amp there, electric guitar, and have guys out there and say you get to play Metallica for people all night, and they that would be so
yeah.
cool. Like I think that would have worked too. But again, um, that I just remembered. I just think they could have done it a lot better than they did. So not
Yeah, I
not my
agree.
favorite, not the worst, but not definitely not my favorite either.
Yeah, you're right. I think I said Ride the Lightning was what it was. Master of Puppets. You're right. That's the song. Um, but yeah, I mean, that was I didn't dislike the house. I love that scene right there where
Uh,
you come up on the house, at the
well,
beginning.
the problem with it is, like, when you see the person in that scene, then it is just a piece of plastic. It's not a very
Yes,
well done,
it's
like.
not. It's
Yeah,
bad.
the things that aren't human in here like look like they took a mannequin and put some makeup on it and didn't even try to make it look like human. And I see that a lot in here too. And like I said, I just didn't feel like it was up to standards. I think of this as being movie quality effects and scenes. If it's a looks like a plastic doll floating in the air, I'm like, well, it looks like a plastic doll. Then I don't know. It's not, doesn't look like a real person at all. So I'm like, I just little stuff like that went a long
Yeah.
way for me. I did watch Stranger Things season 4.
Hmm.
I thought it was good. I'm not one of those people like I watched it 20 times. It's the best ever. It's like
Yeah.
I watched it once. I was like, very good season, and I moved on. But again, I just had higher expectations for what I would see.
Yeah, I think that's justified. I actually saw that character that you're talking about in the house, and I kind of thought, that kind of stinks. I don't think that was the greatest, but that's a really good point, John. So I like I said, it's a little higher on my list. I'd put it about middle of the road though, as far as that goes.
Yeah, I'll tell you, the first night I went, I wanted to go through it since I had Express, and I waited 55 minutes.
Mm,
And
wow.
people without Express waited about 75 minutes. And
Jeez.
that is not the ratio you pay for. And I was not very happy about it. And again, they guarantee at most you'll wait half the posted time. but guarantee against what? And where do you collect on this guarantee? And it's like, it's kind of like a verbal guarantee, you know? It's like, well, what if you don't then? What happens? It's like, I don't know. We guarantee
So
you won't. It's like, so,
yeah.
and then the second time I stayed at Stay and Scream, and we were going to do it while it wasn't that crowded, but the entire Stay and Scream was going into the line. So when we got to the part where you could go to Express, nobody was going to Express. And my wife said, can we use Express? And the guy said no, not for Stay and Scream. And we were like, all right, we'll probably walk right in anyway. Well, about 20 or 30 minutes into the wait, we saw people just going through Express. And then when we got down to the end, we asked the person like scanning it in at the end, and they were like, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they shouldn't have told you that. It is. And I'm like, so now I waited an hour one time, 55 minutes another time. And I'm just, again, I paid like $1,500 for my tickets. And because I can't stand waiting in line, because after a couple long lines like that, I just want to leave. I'm like, my leg hurts now. I'm ready to go. Like, I don't want to do much else. So.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's
that
my
stinks.
complaint for it. And that's another reason I don't like Stranger Things. But if it was good, I would still say it's good. But to me, I just didn't see it.
So one thing I noticed in all of the express lines later on, not those first couple, like I'd say the first three, in the ones later on, I saw team members with clickers. Where they keep you, from going, they had clickers that they were counting. Like there was counts of clickers. So I don't know if they adjusted partway through that particular night because of how busy it was or something, but they actually started to gate. Like they had a specific number that they were stopping and they were looking at these clickers. So my experience was different. Like I definitely didn't wait longer than half of any time in Express that night. So just so you know, I mean, I think maybe they changed something because maybe people complained about it.
I was going to say Universal is very big on guest feedback. So I'm sure they got a lot of complaints from people that felt like their Express Pass was not worth the money, and so then they probably had to make adjustments. But
yeah, that would be my guess. So yeah, so overall, John, I just wanted to two things that I would add. First of all, as far as how I can't say how I feel or how I rank this up there with the other events I've attended, because I really have to chew on that a little bit longer and think about it. But the other thing I would add is it was a little different. It was way more crowded this time than any of the other ones. And that was because it was towards the end of September, and the other ones I did were towards the beginning or middle of September. So I would say this as a preparation thing for other people. From this point forward, you're going to run into crowds every night. So it's going to be very, 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 very difficult for you to do all the houses without Express Pass at this point forward. And it's absolutely going to be impossible for you to do it if you want to catch the Megan Horde, get something, try the food and the drinks and see the Nightmare Fuel show. You will not get all the houses done. There's no way. I can't imagine any way possible other than the RIP tour. So I would put that out there. At this point forward, this event is going to be incredibly busy. The night that we went, you and I were talking to a couple that also was from Pennsylvania, and they said that was one of the last nights, I believe, that the what was available for the free pass for pass holders, right? So it was pretty busy that night for that reason, but also because school kids in Georgia were off for fall break starting that week, starting this week. So there were a couple things going on that were against us that night. And usually I line up over by the Simpsons land, and it was way too crowded by the time we got over there. It's never, in the other events, it's never been that busy. So we ended up going over. You said something about, what'd you call that area over there? What's the name of that restaurant?
I don't even remember.
Richter's, right? Was it Richter's?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you said, well, they're lining up over at Richter's, I hear, and that hasn't been real busy. So we went over to Richter's then to line up for Stay and Scream, and you were absolutely dead on, and that was perfect advice, because when we lined up for Richter's, we got right into the Chucky house during the Stay and Scream, the early type house thing, and we were able to begin our night from there. So I would say just be flexible with your crowd level. So that's pretty much what I have, John, to add to that. What's your overall thoughts and impressions on Horror Nights this year?
I thought it was good this year, but I still I personally didn't like it as much as the pre-shutdown stuff, though. But it may just be the houses, or maybe I'm getting too old. I don't know, but it could just be me. But pretty darn good, though. This is pretty much back to normal, so I'm happy to say it.
Yeah, and by normal, pre-shutdown normal. So
yeah, no plexiglass or anything.
Right.
That stuff was awful.
Yeah. And I got to see the tail end of that, and I saw the last 2 years, and I saw some plexiglass stuff, and I just didn't. I don't think you can. I don't think that's good. A good environment for horror nights with that. I did enjoy those particular horror nights, though, but I think this is a way better, more organic environment. So, all right, John, where can they find you online?
You can find me at SeeWDW on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, and SeeUO on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, and you can find me at the Giant Rat, THEE Giant Rat, on all the socials, and that should do it for this one. We'll see you on the next one.